Welcome everybody. The Great American Bash 2023 is invading Texas with the NXT brand of wrestling. We've got a main event of Carmelo Hayes versus Dragunov. I want you guys to remember the rules for this. This is developmental territory. 2 out of these 5 stars will most likely not make it long-term on the main roster. And remember that at all times, training is in progress with NXT in order for them to be successful, so this is the training ground. Let's go ahead, without further ado, let's get in. Alright guys, so we start out with the Gallus defending their tag team championships against the Family with Tony D'Angelo. So we get Wolfgang and Mark Coffey who are set to defend, again, the championships against Stacks and D'Angelo, the Family, and what's become nothing short of a bitter grudge match. Gallus has all but cleaned out the NXT tag team division, but D'Angelo and Stacks were building momentum until the legal issues caught up with the dawn of NXT. As it turns out, Gallus was the masterminds behind D'Angelo's imprisonment. That plays into the story here tonight. But thanks to some crafty undercover work from Stacks, the Don is free, and the duo is ready for their opportunity at NXT Gold. So we quickly get in the ring with this action, and they take control very quickly. That is Wolfgang and Lorenzo. And basically, then they go back into the corner. Wolfgang makes a tag to Coffey, but Lorenzo creates enough distance to make the tag to D'Angelo. D'Angelo takes control of Coffey and makes a quick tag back to Lorenzo. Lorenzo hits the ropes, and Coffey trips him up on the outside. Lorenzo regains his composure and catches Mark Coffey with a side headlock. Coffey breaks free and makes the tag to Wolfgang. Wolfgang works over Lorenzo in the corner before making the tag back to Coffey. We get some back and forth tag team matchup here going, and what we gotta really see is there's a lot of play into this. There's a lot of play into the prison type storyline here. We've got some orange pants being worn by D'Angelo, given the idea that he's fresh out of prison. We've got Gallus wearing some stripes tonight, kind of a prison attire a little bit. I feel like it was a little bit of a flashback to the Killer Bees tag team that's a little bit embedded into their clothing. So I kind of like that little style. It might be a nice little nod that we might have seen in this matchup. Fast forward in the action, we got D'Angelo who takes out Coffey up top. As Lorenzo makes a blind tag, D'Angelo delivers a suplex to Coffey, which sets Lorenzo up for a diving headbutt from the adjacent corner. Lorenzo covers Coffey, and Wolfgang makes the save, and Wolfgang gets the tag, but D'Angelo brings the top rope, but Wolfgang tumbles the outside. D'Angelo powerbombs Coffey into Wolfgang, onto the outside, and then heads back into the ring, and he launches Lorenzo over the top rope onto Wolfgang and Coffey. Wolfgang heads back into the ring with D'Angelo, and he tags D'Angelo into the match. D'Angelo and Lorenzo catch Wolfgang with a double team fall away choke slam, and that's enough for the 1, the 2, and the 3. And your new tag team champions, the Family, with Stacks and D'Angelo, as they defeat the Gallus. Match was coming about 9 minutes, 14 seconds or so, and it was very quick, very back and forth opener, and a quick title change at the beginning of the match. So all in all, not a terrible match. I'm interested to see where they go here with Gallus. Are we seeing a main roster call-up? We always got to ask that question. But without further ado, let's move on to a Weapons Wilds match. That's Roxanne Perez and Blair Davenport. Davenport, a fairly newcomer to the NXT brand, and we get a lot of storyline. The prodigy, Roxanne Perez, is ready to do whatever it takes to finally quell the threat that is domineering in Blair Davenport. She's going to try and do it with a Weapons Wild match where anything can go in this arena. And since Davenport revealed herself as the hooded attacker that was assaulting NXT superstars, she has turned her attention solely to the former NXT Women's Champion and has made her mission to push Perez out the door and usher in a new era in NXT. Perez, meanwhile, has been a steadfast since her arrival, refusing to give up to Davenport, using the wise words from Booker T and finding the fire within herself that has been there a long, long time, but maybe a little forgotten this year. I feel like Roxanne Perez has been on a bit of a downfall this year. She started out the year as NXT Women's Champion, if you guys remember, and I feel like, she's kind of slowly been on a road down below. So will she catch wind tonight on this matchup and maybe get back to where she needs to be? Let's find out, because she's definitely been off a little bit. So Davenport, from right away, Roxanne Perez comes in, and she's interacting and taking a picture with a fan. And then at this point, Davenport actually comes masked out of the crowd during her entrance and attacks her. The bell rings, and I thought that was a very fitting start to this style of Weapons Wild match. But I like the fact, because this is about random attacking, and we got a match started with the random attack. You think Roxanne would have been used to that by now. But regardless, we get the bell ring, they start the matchup, and Perez and Davenport are still on the outside. Perez and Davenport brawl on the outside, and Perez dives off the barricade onto Davenport. The action finally enters into the ring, but Perez quickly dumps Davenport back onto the outside. Perez goes for a suicide dive, but Davenport blocks with a trash can. Davenport puts Perez on the inside of the trash can in the ring and repeatedly beats on the trash can. Davenport dumps Perez back on the outside and uses a belt to whip Perez into the barricade right in front of her mother and right in front of her sister. We're doing the classic heel heat in front. I'm going to beat you in front of your parents kind of motive, right? So we got the sister and the mother there at ringside. Davenport does a great job playing to the little sister, doing the Sasha Banks boo-hoo, like gives me an idea of years ago with Bayley in NXT land. But Perez pulls out a table from under the wing and sets it up at ringside. Davenport tries to fight back, but Perez slams Davenport's lower back into the apron. Perez rolls Davenport into the ring, heads up to the top. Davenport knocks her down right on the mat. Perez goes for the pop rocks onto a pile of chairs, but Davenport's good enough, and she's scouted and she blocks it. Davenport slams Perez onto the trash can and tries to hit a side Russian leg sweep off the apron through the table at ringside, but Perez blocks it. Perez hits a running knee shot, puts Davenport on the table, and heads up top. Perez hits a diving splash from the top on Davenport through the table. Perez rolls Davenport back into the ring and hits the pop rocks onto a pile of chairs for the 1, the 2, and the 3. Your winner, Roxanne Perez, finds her fire and gets back at Davenport in a Revenge Weapons Wild match at about the 11-minute 40-second mark. So, not a terrible match. I like the story dynamic. I like how this match had a story to it. It had a story and a history with blind attacks and lots of weapons. This, assault in the grocery store that happened. So we actually started the match out with the assault. We actually had the sister present, which you kind of hinted that, Roxanne Perez is not going to lose in Texas in front of her sister and her mom. But we did get that, and we did get that, quick matchup. I felt like this is kudos to NXT. They didn't let the weapons outshine the actual match itself. They enhanced it, but they didn't actually outdo it. And I've seen some of these matches where the weapons, the chairs, the trash cans, they become the main feature and you forget about the wrestlers in the match. I don't think that happened here. Let me know what you guys think. All right, next up, we've got Gable Stevenson, the long-time WWE hot free agent signing. He's an Olympic gold medalist and who was signed a couple of years ago, actually debuted and announced at Mania. He didn't have a debut match, but he was only announced at Mania. And so the Olympic gold medalist, Gable Stevenson, he's set to make his in-ring debut on NXT, where he's going to be facing Baron Corbin at this Great American Bash. Stevenson's been deciding between staying in NXT and heading back to college, according to the storyline, or competing internationally, but he ultimately chooses to be a superstar because, you know what, that's where it's at in the world. Corbin, however, wasn't really thrilled about this and challenged him to the match. We get a nice reminder from the announcers in this one that Baron Corbin was the man to retire Kurt Angle. We did forget about that. I know I did. And with all these Kurt Angle-like comparisons to Gable Stevenson, that's a great point to bring up by the announcers in this matchup. I will say, Gable Stevenson, he got a little, heat tonight due to some personal issues outside of wrestling. However, I didn't think he looked too terrible in the match. I do want to talk about what is with Baron Corbin and his new look. Baron is the master of the gimmick change. They have changed him and thrown so much creative investment into him. From his partnership with Madcap Moss, and then Down on His Luck Corbin, and then Money Corbin, and then, the Lone Wolf gimmick, which I thought they were going to go with. But now, apparently he's a pirate. We've got some pirate ships. We've got Baron Corbin coming out to a new music and a new look. Not to the point of Paul Burchill pirate gimmick, but he does have this like little modern day pirate type gimmick to him. You know, at this point, I mean, what's it going to take? Maybe we get a parrot on his shoulder. Maybe we get like a lot of just armor matey, right? Maybe we give him a little, bodyguard and call him Mr. Shmee. Arr, Mr. Shmee, right this way. So either way, Baron Corbin is now a pirate. I don't know what they're going to do with this, but I know we go to NXT typically to work on our character, and Corbin has had a long run in WWE, but there hasn't been many characters that have actually taken hold for him and caused him to become a main event level status. So with that being said, let's break down this matchup and see how he does taking on the newcomer Gable Stevenson under his belt, under his tutelage in the ring. So Corbin, at this point, Stevenson right away goes for a leg shoot as soon as the bell rings, but Corbin successfully evades it. Corbin then knocks Stevenson into the corner and works him in the corner. Stevenson leaps over Corbin in the corner and catches him with an ankle lock. Stevenson dumps Corbin on the outside, hits a German suplex to the outside. Corbin fights back and slams Stevenson into the ring post to regain control of the match. Corbin rolls Stevenson back into the ring and drives a knee into Stevenson's gut. Corbin works over Stevenson in the corner and slams him to the mat for a 1 and a 2. You know, and it's an interesting point the announcers are making here. They're really trying to build up that this is not a wrestling match that Stevenson is used to in the Olympics. This is a sports entertainment match. This is a, slugfest and a brawler, and there's a lot of outside of the ring action. And every time something is done to Stevenson, they're building up the idea that Baron Corbin is a tough WWE competitor, and Stevenson's never seen competition like this. Back at the action, we get more brawling at ringside, all the way to the very end as they both end in a double countout. Stevenson and Corbin continue to brawl out of the ring until we heard officials and security that try to pull them apart. I love this moment when Stevenson actually goes kind of a little crazy and starts just beating up the security, which then causes Corbin to do the same thing. But Stevenson's looked a little stronger. Stevenson levels Corbin on the outside before celebrating a moral victory in the ring. I like this debut for Gable Stevenson. I think it's very safe that they showed glimmers of his technical prowess, but they kept him away from being a Kurt Angle-like clone. One of the things I gotta say that WWE needs to be careful with the Olympic gold medalist gimmick, and that's fine they want to go that route, but they gotta be careful that people do not constantly compare him to Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle is one of the greatest Olympians to ever transition into a pro wrestling world. And I will say, they gotta be careful with Gable to not give him a raw deal to begin with. So I like the fact that they took a brawling style match with Corbin, more of a veteran, that, knows enough to not, make him look bad, but enough just to make him look decent. I also like the fact they took the brawling mentality. I like the fact that they went, that route with Stevenson, and then I like the fact that they ended in the double countout that allows these guys to work with each other a little bit more. Remember, from a developmental standpoint, you want Stevenson to get familiar with a guy like Baron Corbin, who's a long-term mid-card talent, and get used to guys like that, and get, find his ring rust and, kind of work that off, right? So we definitely want to, be careful with this Gable Stevenson project as we move ahead and advance. I like what I've seen tonight. I've seen flashes of technical. I've seen brawling. But most importantly, I've seen his way to play to the crowd. I've seen his way to posturize really well in the ring. And, just kind of do the things you could tell he was trained on doing. So, again, not a bad little debut match. It was a no contest, double count out at about the 6 minute and 40-second mark. And I'm okay with that because at the end of the day, he was there long enough. He didn't outstay his welcome, and he left them wanting a little bit more. And we'll see what happens on Tuesday between these two. Let's move on. We've got the North American Championship match. And I'm going to say, with the WWE Women's World Champion Rhea Ripley at his side, Dirty Dominic Mysterio will defend the NXT North American Championship against Wesley and Mustafa Ali in this triple threat match. Mysterio won the title in a shocker back on July 18th episode of NXT, dethroning Lee, who had the championship for 269 long days in his reign. Lee was originally set to defend the title against Mustafa Ali at the Great American Bash, but a frustration Ali still wants his title opportunity. Lee and Ali set their sights on Mysterio as soon as the bell rings in this matchup. So they come out, and this triple threat match, I like the fact that this is the test ground to see if Wes Lee can handle the main roster. Mark my words. They put Mustafa Ali and Dominic Mysterio in a ring with Wes Lee to see what he can do on the main roster. There's two main roster veterans here that are, kind of coming down to NXT to give Wes Lee a rub and see what he can do in a match and a program. So I like what they're doing there. So, they kind of start out and they immediately focus on Mysterio. But Mysterio knocks them both down to the outside. Mysterio rolls Ali back to the ring and he hits a 2 of the Three Amigos before Lee interferes. Mysterio hits 2 of the Three Amigos on Lee, but this time Ali interferes. Lee and Ali team up to deliver a double team. Three Amigos to Mysterio. Lee catches Mysterio with a Meteora into a pin predicament, but Ali breaks it up with a drop kick between the ropes from the outside. Ali catches Lee in a tornado DDT out of the corner, but only gets a 1 and a 2. Ali hits a slingshot rolling neck breaker and then ties up Lee and Mysterio in a very sweet combination. It was like a Boston Crab / camel clutch combo by Mustafa Ali. And so as he has kind of a combo on both men of a Boston Crab and camel clutch, we're wondering which ones are going to tap. Neither of them do though. Lee and Mysterio break free, but Ali dumps them back onto the rope. Ali heads to the top rope, goes for the 450 splash onto Lee and Mysterio onto the apron. But Lee and Mysterio actually roll out of the way, and Ali crashes onto the apron in a very bad, just smack, where, as the announcers say, wood meets metal. And at this point, Ali is taken out of the match for a very long time. Mysterio rolls up Lee to only get a 1 and a 2. Mysterio heads to the outside, but eats a suicide dive from Lee. Lee rolls back into the ring and goes for another suicide dive, but Rhea Ripley leaps onto the apron to block him. Lee hits the ropes and dives over Ripley onto Mysterio on the outside. Ripley hits Lee with a riptide through the announcer table, but there are no disqualifications on a triple threat match. Remember, that's kind of how it rolls down in NXT. Ripley rolls Lee back into the ring, so Ali seizes the opportunity to come back up and hit his 450 splash from the top. Ali covers Lee, but Rhea Ripley pulls Ali to the outside. We never see him again. Mysterio heads to the top, and he hits the frog splash on the Lee for the 1, the 2, and the 3. Dominic Mysterio defeats Wes Lee with the frog splash at the 12-minute and 10-second mark. So I want to say on this one, I like what they're doing with the NXT Championship. I said on our other show that I didn't want to see this become a habit normal of a main roster guy getting NXT titles. But with Dominic, it works. It works because he's getting heat and he's very good at doing his job. So, some of you guys are going to like that. Some of you guys are not going to feel it so much. But I am going to say this. Right now, it is putting a lot on the map. And this was a great testing ground again for Wes Lee to see if he can hang on the main roster. It is a great way to get some eyes on the product for NXT. I'm going to say this is probably one of the matches of the night for me, ending at about the 12-minute, 10-second mark. So not a bad one overall. We're going to move ahead. We've got our NXT Women's Championships. Tiffany Stratton versus Thea Hale of Chase U. And this is a submission match. I want to start off and say, I've had my eye on Thea Hale for a very long time, since her days as Nikita Knight on the indie scene and on AEW Dark. I like the little things that I see Thea Hale do, aka Nikita Knight. I like the things that I seen her do in the ring, the basics. She seemed to know how to play to the crowd just right, and that's what made her a great fit for Chase U. We got the submission match. Right now, Tiffany Stratton is the hot product. There's no way they're taking this title off her anytime soon. With the popularity of the Barbie movie, you got a live-action Barbie doll right there in WWE NXT. Stratton will put, in this matchup, the NXT Women's title against Thea Hale in a grueling submission match. So, Stratton basically calls herself the prettiest title reign ever, and it's gone without its headaches, but mainly due to the very peppy Thea Hale from Chase U. So, at this point, the two face off for the title for the NXT. Basically, they did face off at Gold Rush for the NXT title, but The official was distracted and did not see Stratton tapping out, and the chaos allowed her to retain the women's championship. Will this be Thea Hale's time? Let's find out. So, we get into the match. Stratton goes for a total war backbreaker, and Hale counters into an arm drag. Hale goes for a springboard back senton, but Stratton gets her knees up. Stratton locks in the body scissors on the mat. Hale fights back to her feet, hits the Stratusfaction. Hale heads up to the top and connects a diving crossbody, but Stratton rolls through and lifts Hale. Hale locks in the Kimura as Stratton lifts her up, so Stratton counters with a suplex into the quarter break. Stratton and Hale head to the top, and Hale muscles Stratton into a superplex complex. Hale goes back to the Kimura because that's part of that story, but Hale grabs the bottom rope to break the hold. Stratton hits the prettiest moonsault ever and locks in a Boston Crab. Hale fights. She's a fighter. She's a fighter by day and night. Hale refuses to tap, so Stratton switches to a single-leg Boston Crab. Hale still refuses, and she's a fighter. And then at this point, Andrew Chase of Chase U can't watch any more of the suffering. He throws in the towel to end the match. So therefore, Tiffany Stratton wins by Thea Hale with a single-leg Boston Crab due to a submission due to a towel being thrown in at the 11-minute 52-second mark. I would say this is a very good match showcase for both women. I wondered the direction of the NXT Women's Championship when Tiffany Stratton took it. And I feel like the hype with that and the Barbie movie and just everything kind of coming together at the right time. I feel like we're going to have a nice little, push for Tiffany Stratton to be a long-term champion. Thea Hale did a good job as an up-and-comer and kind of filling a spot for a title defense spot for Tiffany Stratton. I like this one. Guys, I also want to talk about things I like. I want to talk about how you guys like, share, and subscribe on my content. I want to talk a little bit about, you guys that, hit that like button for me. It helps me so much. I really want to say, YouTube has not been the most friendliest in the last few weeks. They've done a lot to hurt the little guy on the product. I'm going to be looking at a lot of different options. Some of you guys may be listening to me on Spotify. I'm going to push that a lot more. You guys may be listening to me on YouTube. That's fine. Hopefully we can get it back together. But thank you guys for that. Check us out at thefansofprowrestling.com, where me and the team, we also work on the Wrestling Fans Insight podcast, part of the Saged Up Network. So, guys, I want to talk about all the work we're doing over there on Twitter Space. And, jump in every Monday night with us so we can do some live chatting. But let's get into our main event. We got the NXT Championship, Carmelo Hayes versus Dragunov. The NXT Championship is going to be on the line. Carmelo Hayes defends the brand's top prize against Dragunov, and Hayes has been super busy superstar since winning it back at Stand and Deliver, having to endure challenges from Braun Breaker. Wonder where, it's interesting that they didn't have Braun in a major program right now. Baron Corbin, and most recently the battle with Judgment Day. But now his way to the toughest superstar, and that is the Mad Dragon himself, to become the #1 contender. So, this matchup, I was a little worried about a promo that was done earlier in the night with Trick Williams. I said in wrestling, there's always a trope when your best friend starts talking really, really good about you, or your bodyguard. That's a sign that you better watch your back, that he's probably going to turn on you. So, these guys lock up immediately right in the beginning. Dragunov hits a pretty superb German suplex and follows up with another German suplex. Dragunov goes for a third one, but this time Hayes blocks and Dragunov retains and controls him with a back senton and gets a 2 count. Dragunov locks in a modified Cobra Clutch, and then he whips Hayes into the second rope. Dragunov works over Hayes with a volley in the chops, and then levels him with a spinning chop for a 2 count. Dragunov and hits Hayes, and they slug it out in the middle of the ring, and you finally see Hayes just saying, all right, I'm going to bring it to Dragunov because Dragunov's bringing it to me, and I got to get vicious. I got to get nasty. So at this point, we get a little bit more fast forward in the match. We get another modified Cobra Clutch, and then he adds a body scissors to that. Hayes and Dragunov are basically into these weird pinning predicaments throughout. We get at another point a tilt-a-whirl bulldog for a 1 and a 2. Hayes takes control and works over Dragunov. Dragunov lands a volley of elbow shots to the head. Fast forward even more after some back and forth action. Dragunov hits a running fist drop, but Hayes once again kicks out at the 1 and a 2. Hayes and Dragunov slug it out in the middle of the ring, and And they actually do a lot of this matchup in the middle of the ring, which I did appreciate. They level each other with simultaneous roundhouse kicks. Hayes and Dragunov both tumble to the outside. Dragunov goes for a torpedo Moscow, but Hayes sidesteps him, and Dragunov ends up connecting with Trick Williams. Hayes rolls Dragunov back into the ring, heads up, and he hits the nothing but net for the 3 count. Carmelo Hayes defeats Dragunov with the nothing but net right at the 24-minute mark. So, this has a lot of interesting effects that I want to talk about in the final thoughts. So let's transition right over there. Alright guys, so NXT, the Great American Bash. Let's talk about what happened in Texas. We didn't really get too much play into a lot of those monikers, but what we did get is a nice quick show that was easy to enjoy for the WWE NXT audience. It reminded me a lot of the old school in your house type shows that they used to have. The match average was about 10 to 12 minutes for every match except for the main event that went 24 minutes, and I was okay with that. They didn't outstay their welcome, as I say. And with development talent, I feel like you don't want them to go out there and have 40-minute matches, because that's a lot of learning that they're going to have to do down there. So I like the 10 to 12 minute format on these, lower card shows. Also, very interesting, there's no Braun Breaker. This was NXT kind of testing the waters a little bit, saying let's take Braun Breaker out. Yes, I know there's other things going on, but let's just say, let's take him out of this and let's see how Carmelo Hayes is able to hold the head of the roster. Also, the Wes Lee match felt like a main roster style match, and I think that probably is due to Mustafa Ali, excuse me. It's getting late, guys. Mustafa Ali and also Dominic being main level guys. So this was the true test for Wes Lee. I'm going to give you guys a little insight. Based on what I see off of Wes Lee, he could be on the main roster. And I do think I would enjoy thoroughly to see him with a tag team partner on the main roster and actually be in a legitimate tag team. And I'm going to be honest, I would like that tag team partner to be Ricochet. I feel like those two would be magic in the ring if they could come up with an actual team name, actual team uniform, and look. And I think it would be almost great for both of their careers and to help revitalize that main roster tag team championship. Also, Trick Williams, is he the next feud for Carmelo Hayes? I'm going to say yes. There was that promo earlier tonight that scared me a little bit that he was going to betray Carmelo in the main event, because he talked so well about how close they are. And when your bodyguard talks about how close you are in a single promo, that means they're testing him out for a singles run against you. And so, I think that might be something you guys want to watch out for on Tuesday to see if that actually comes to fruition. Well, guys, those are my final thoughts and results. Let me know in the comments below, or talk to me on Twitter about, kind of what's going on with that at the Bryan Adkins. But I'm going to get out of here. Have a good night. Remember, guys, like, share, subscribe, and it's not goodbye around here. It's game over.